Okay, like I was saying, this is the normal home route. Okay, like if you come to the app, let me log out here. The first page you're seeing here now, that's this first page now, is what this one gives. And if you watch what's going on here now, this guy is not authenticated. Okay, that means if you're not logged in, that is where, sorry, that is where you 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 have access to this. And if you can see, what they did here was, here this one now is just standing on its own. Okay, this one is just standing on its own, and as it's standing on its own, it's not with this middleware. Okay, now this middleware is guarded in such a way that it's only a logged in user that can access all these routes. And that is the reason why they group them. Only a logged in user that can access these routes. Okay, now for a logged in user, now this Laravel normally, Laravel have different mode of authentication, and different validation means that they can add to the middleware. Like before now, Laravel uses there's the web auth, okay, but with Laravel 8 have Sanctum. This Sanctum authentication packed with it, okay. But apart from the Sanctum, you can still use passports, Laravel passports. There's another one called Laravel passports, okay? Like some of the projects we've done in the past, we've used Laravel passport for authentication. But for Laravel 8, the Sanctum is the default authentication guard that they use for their middleware, okay? So now that is, the major thing I'm trying to explain here is why these whole routes are grouped is because all of them have to pass through this particular middleware, okay? Now we can still create other middleware and, pass each of these, but we're not going into that, okay? So now all these are the routes. Now, another thing again you need to know is this Laravel 8, there is a JavaScript, should I say framework or whatever. I don't really really know how to distinguish it, but let's just say there is a particular framework, though it's a JavaScript that's called Initial JS. Okay. Now, Laravel 8 also made it official in how they work with their front end. Okay. Before now, we want to use Vue.js. There's something they call the Vue router. Okay, for those of us that are still learning how to work with Vue, there is something they call the Vue router. Okay, the Vue router usually go with a Vue package called the Vuex, which is used to store states. Okay, now if we go further into, as we go further into this development, we're going to see some of all those things like states and mutation and whatsoever. Okay, but in this Laravel package, in this Laravel 8, what they did was some of the things that normally, if we want to do with Vue, since we are using Vue for our front end, some of the things we want to do in Vue and employ extra packages like the Vuex and the rest. Okay. Now they brought in this Initial JS to take care of all those things. That means Initial JS took care of both routing and rendering your pages. Okay. Like as you can see now, what's going on here now is the Initial JS, they're calling the Initial JS package to render a page. called dashboard. Okay, now let me show you something here. Now everything we're going to do is on this resource folder. Okay, and when you click on resource folder, now normally for those of us that are not really used to Laravel, now we have our public folder where you can still see JS, CSS, images, whatsoever. Okay, but I'm not talking about the public now. I'm talking about the resources folder. Okay, so on the resources folder, we also have CSS, JS, and other things that we might work with or we can work with there. Okay, so on the resource folder, in this JS folder that is in the resources, this is where we are going to do all the work we want to do, except for those of us that will be handling backend that will have to come work with either this app, the routes, or the database. Okay, that means for those of us that will be handling backend, we'll work with this database folder, we'll work with this app folder, as well as the route folders. But for those of us that will be handling front end, we're going to work with the JS folder, as well as probably we might work with the routes periodically. Okay, so that is what we're going to do. Now, the major thing, like I said before, are in this JS folder. Okay, now on this JS folder, you can see a particular folder called pages. Okay, now on these pages, this is where all the page that we'll be working with are stored. Okay, like for instance, if I open this pages folder, you are going to see that I have the dashboard.view and the profile.view. Okay, the dashboard.view is what I'm rendering in this whole content, and that's why you see that my content is not changing even when I come here. Okay, let me log in again. Even when I come to log in, okay, you see that even when I move, the routes, you can detect from the routes here that as I'm actually moving from one page to another, but the content is the same. Okay, edit corrections, user profile. Okay, but you see that the content is the same. The reason is because of the fact that I'm simply rendering the dashboard for each of the routes for now. Okay, so what we're going to do is for the different pages that we're going to create, we're going to create them on the pages. Okay, that means we'll create the different files here. Then when we create the different files here, we're going to render them on this routes using the initial render. Okay, now apart from rendering the pages here, we can still, like, let me try open my dashboard.view here. Okay, if I open my dashboard, you see that I have little write-ups, little things here that are not much, okay, in my dashboard.view. Now, on the dashboard.view now, everything I have here now is what you're seeing, both this header and this level whatsoever that you're seeing. And let me go to the dashboard mainly. Okay, so for instance, you can see something like a component here. This is a welcome component. Now, this welcome component, if I comment it out, if I comment this welcome component out and I save, sorry, normally I'm supposed to do my npm run watch so that anything I affect now will be seeing the effect. Sorry, npm run watch. Okay. So as it's compiling, let me just explain what I'm trying to talk about here. Okay, this welcome component you're seeing is actually what is being rendered that you're seeing here now. Okay, welcome component is what is being rendered that we're seeing here now. So if I connect this, sorry for my network. If I comment this now, okay, and my, what's it called? My compilation finish successfully, you're going to see that this whole part will go out. So while we wait for the compilation, let me just comment this header as well, okay? So I'll save this, okay? Please pardon my network. I believe we are still together. Are we still together?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're together. We're together.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Thank you. Pardon my network. My network is really frustrating me.
Okay.
So now when I commented this now, if I refresh this page, you find out that the whole content is gone. Okay. So that's telling you that this is these two things now. Now, why I'm showing you this now is for us to, what we are trying to do now. The essence of this meeting actually is to familiarize with the development environment so that when we're working, it will take us little or no time to catch up with what we're supposed to do. Okay. So especially for those of us that have not actually worked with this whole thing before, okay? But as we walk along, normally I know we'll still get confused by the way and we'll have to ask questions. Okay, but we'll just start maybe a gradual process, okay, with some simple tasks. We'll start with some simple tasks first. Okay, so let me uncomment this whole thing again and refresh, and everything will come back the way they're supposed to be. Okay, so now everything is back here. Now, what I will do here now is this. Let me show you the breakdown of what actually is happening. Okay, now you find out that I don't really have much thing on this my dashboard, but I have a lot of things here now. How come I have a lot of things here, even though I have some few stuff on my dashboard? Now, what actually is happening is this. Now, apart from these pages that you're seeing, apart from these pages inside here, now there is a folder. I'm the one that created this component folder. Now, what I have in mind is on this component folder, we're going to be creating extra components that we'll be using. Okay, that means when you want to create component for something, okay. Now, for those of us that are not really used to this, the beauty of working with some of these frameworks that we're working with now is that we can divide the entire work that we're doing into components. That is to say, we can split different parts of the work into modules, and each of these modules will be created as components. Now we'll create these components. Now all these components can now be fused together to give you the whole application. That is the beauty of what we're doing now. So another thing again is for us to work collaboratively, each person can be working on different components. Okay, that means this particular person can be working on this component, this particular person can be working on this component, this particular person can be working on this component. Then after the whole thing now, the whole components will be fused together to give you the main app. Okay, now I'm going to create something. Now, please, what I want to create now is the bedrock of how you are going to work with this application. Okay, now it's the bedrock of how you're going to work with the application, and it's also going to tell you some certain things that you need to know about how this application is structured. Okay, now if you watch what I have here, normally I have, okay, let's say I have a strange kind of HTML element here called app layout, okay? Now, this app layout is simply a component that are imported into this my dashboard. As you can see via this is the import statement. Okay, this is the import statement. Now, also, I imported this welcome, which is this other components. Okay, now, apart from the components, I use this, though this one is not a component. This one is just a JavaScript file. Okay, but the major two components are this welcome and the app layout. And as you can see, on my export default, I have to register them. So anytime you're bringing a component, a new component into your page, you have to import it and register it. Then after registering the component, you can now use the component as a normal HTML element. Okay, that is one thing you need to know. Now, the second thing is this, the app layout. The app layout, what I'm using the app layout for here is not just a component, but rather it is the app layout that gives the whole layouting that you are seeing, everything you're seeing, the way this page is structured. It is the app layout that gives it this structure. Now, how did we do that? Okay, now let's visit the app layout component. The app layout component is inside this layouts. Okay, now if I open this layouts, I'll go to app layouts. Okay, yeah, if you notice, I commented some things like old and old. All these ones I named old are the default ones as I created the project. That default ones that came with the scaffolding. Okay, so what I did, I don't want to use them, but I might need one or two things from there. That's why I didn't delete them. I just named them old. Okay. So now let's go to the this app layout now. Look at the app layouts. Now on this app layout, this is where the whole application lies. Okay. Now, for instance, in the app layout, I also worked with some custom HTML elements. Like as you can see, the side nav. Okay. You can see okay, the slots. These are the two major things that are on this app layout. Okay, now let me do something. Let me comment the slot out of this. Okay, when I comment this slot out of this, look at what will happen here. On this our dashboard, we no longer have that content. Okay, we no longer have that content. Okay, that means all the contents that you were seeing here in this dashboard are as a result of the slots. Not just the dashboard, every other page. As you can see, the content is no longer available. Okay, so the reason for that is because all the pages uses that app layout, because that app layout is just like the structure. Now look at, let me remove this header slots. Okay, if I remove this header slot, the same thing that happened to the body that you were seeing, you will not see this header here again. Okay, that header is gone, that dashboard at the top. And when I remove that, any page that I am will also go out. Like I said before, that's the reason. The reason is because all the pages are using that app layout as their structure. Now, the next thing is, let me remove the side nav. Okay, so these are the extra HTML elements. Every other element are normal HTML element that you know. Okay, so I'll remove the side nav and I'll refresh my page. And if I refresh my page, you discover that nothing is remaining on the page except the little structure which is given by this HTML. Okay, so now this is what the app layer have. The app layer houses the entire application. Okay, now let me show you how this works now. Okay, number one thing, let's say the side nav. Okay, now like what I said before, we can create a component and import other component. Like I said, that's the beauty of working with some of this JavaScript framework precisely is because we can work with on different components. And this is an example of what it is. Like as you can see now, the side nav is simply everything that you see on this sidebar. That means if someone is to work on the side nav, the person can decide to just take this component. Now, the side nav is a component that was imported into this page from this include, from pages include side nav, okay? But the slot is like a default element that comes with the view, okay? That means when you use slots, is by default, you are not bringing it from anywhere, okay? I'm going to talk about the slots very soon. So now let's just face the side nav mainly. Now, on the side nav, okay, on the side nav, let's open the side nav so that you see. It's on pages, which is we are on pages here, then include, okay? If I open include, this is the side nav, okay? Now, if I come to the side nav here, you're going to see that like this, my link here, I have an image and I have a strong that said projects inside it, okay? Now this gives us these top parts that you're seeing. This part that you're seeing is what gives birth to it, okay? So this part is what gives birth to this. So the image and that particular project you're seeing now. Now this is the initial link. This is how, we'll talk about the initial link as well later, not now, okay? Now after this guy, we'll also have the image of the current logged in user, okay? And also we have the first name and last name of the logged in user, as well as the type of account of the logged in user, okay? Now, this whole thing that you're seeing here is what constitutes this part, this next part here. That you have the image, the supposed image, the name of the user, as well as the kind of account, if it's a student, an admin, or a lecturer. Okay, so now with this, the next thing is the nav bar. Okay, now normally, you know, nav is a normal HTML element. Okay, but what I did here was I now included another component called the nav bar, a component I created. Okay, so as you can see, I registered the component here as well. Okay, so the nav bar registered. Now, what is in the nav bar? This whole nav bar now gave birth to this whole thing you're seeing. That's this whole nav bar. Okay, so like therefore, if I comment this nav bar out, for instance, you're not going to see those parts anymore. The dashboard, that's the menu. The menu is gone. Okay, so now why I did this now is so that we can still work on the menu separately if we want to. Okay, so the navbar is another component that is imported from this. So this is the navbar here. Okay, so if you watch the navbar, this is all the links you have. You have the dashboard, you have the new content, you have the edits and corrections, and also you have the user profile as well as what's the logout. So this is all the link you have here. Okay. So now, importantly, I want to point out something here. Importantly, look at what I did here. Now this, what's it called? These two lists here now, if you watch what's happening here, they are covered in a template. Okay, they are covered in a template, and the template will only show if the user type is equal to a student. Okay, if the user type is equal to a student. That is why when I logged in as a lecturer here, you can see that normally I'm supposed to see the other menu, but I'm not seeing them because the type is lecturer So a lecturer cannot see this, okay? Like if we check from our flowcharts, the flowchart we saw earlier on, let's say the lecturer is supposed to review project materials. That means the project materials that have been submitted, okay? So let's just say review project, for instance, okay? Let's say review project is, let's say review project is a menu for lecturers. So in such case, what I can simply do is I can simply, let me just copy this whole thing here. Let me just copy this whole thing here. Now, I can come down here, paste this, then change this user type. If this user type is equal to a lecturer, okay, then what I need is a lecturer can review user type, review projects, okay, or should you say, yes, review projects, okay. So a lecturer can review projects. At the same time, lecturer can do what? I can approve, review corrections. Okay, normally I didn't want to do review corrections, but let's just say for the sake of this, we're going to adjust that later when the project starts. Okay, normally review project is supposed to see the project and the corrections. If they have made correction on the project, everything is supposed to be on the review project. On the review project, we're supposed to give something like a list of projects that have been submitted by different students. So any of the projects you click on, the details of that project will come. So when the details of the project come, the lecturer will be able to see the corrections you have made, the comments you have made, the correction the student have done, things like that. Okay, that means the lecturer can also keep track of what's the kind of the activities, the activity log of what he and each student is doing as the project progresses. Okay, so but let's just say review here, review review corrections. Let's just say review corrections. Okay, now as we are designing, if any of us have a better idea on how we can do some of all these things, we will still have to indicate. So you just note some of all these things down, so that if there's any way we can make it simpler, we can still do it like that. Okay, now I didn't change the routes. Okay, I just want to change the view so that we'll see that, okay, they're actually different. Okay, let me change this my icon to something like an eye. Okay, but now I don't have an eye. Let me know. I don't have an eye yet. Okay, let me know. Okay, let me just talk about it actually, so that for those of us that might want to use font awesome, that we know what to do. Okay, now a font awesome in this project, how it works is most of the icons are not available for you until you bring them in from the app.js. Okay, now the app.js on your resources is just like where we keep most of the libraries and dependencies and some of all these things, but no, not dependencies like in your package.json or your composer.json, okay? But this one is just like any library you are importing that you want Vue to work with, you import it here within the app.js, okay? Because this app.js is where the entire application is rendered into your app.js in your public that your application actually uses. Okay, so now if you watch what's happening here now, I have different types of font awesome libraries. I have for the regular fonts, I have for the solid fonts. Sorry, I have the SVG core and so on and so forth. So now this library here, I'm trying to add this library here, comes from this SVG core. Now this library will not add any fonts that you need. As you can see, these are the fonts I have currently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So only these 7 fonts will be compiled into my application. So if I need any other fonts, what I simply need to do is I'll have to come and include the fonts here. Okay. Now, including the font, you should know if the font is a brand, if it's a brand, if it's a solid icon, or if it's a regular icon. Okay. Now, assuming it's a regular icon, you have to add that particular icon here by simply saying, let's say I want to add I now, FAI. Okay. Now, when I add it here, that means it's going to import it from regular. Okay, but I don't know if regular have I actually. Sorry. Okay, but I know, I'm very sure that solid have I. Okay, so let's see. Let's just try. Let's just try if regular have I. But working with regular, there's something else I will have to do. FAI. Okay, so now after I've imported it among what I'm importing from the regular icon, so I will have to register it inside this library.add. That means I'll have to say FAI. Okay, so when I do this, it has registered it. Okay, so now that it has registered, I'll just simply say save. Okay, now when I save this, I can now use the I here. But the truth is, if I use this guy here, and this guy is a regular icon, front awesome icon, okay? It's a regular front awesome icon. Now, this thing I did here is not going to work. Okay, just saying icon, I is not going to work, okay? So if I refresh this my page now, for instance, okay, sorry, I'm trying to work it on the lecturer's part. So let's refresh the lecturer's part. Okay, so when we refresh the lecturer's part, sorry. I think I'm getting something wrong here. User type is equal to lecturer. Okay, let's see if we actually have an error, because it's supposed to show now. So if there is no error, what we'll do is we'll have to clear the cache here. Okay. There's no error. Okay, so let me try clear the cache. Okay. The view projects. Okay. Now look at this. Okay. Say could not find more icon, one or more icon, FAS. That means what I'm trying to say now is SS is this. When we just use icon, this, okay, we're simply telling it to use the solid icon from the solid photosum library. That means icons from this guy, this solid SVG icons. Okay, so that is when we use, even in a normal native coding, where we will do what we're using I dots FAFA. That means your IE elements. Okay, those ones are simply your solid icons. Okay, so now for us to use or determine if we are going to use a solid icon, a regular icon, or a brand, what we'll do is we bind this icon attributes to an array. Okay, now inside the array, the first thing I'll specify should be what kind of icon do I want to access? Okay, so I'll simply specify that I want to access a font or some regular icon, and the particular icon I want to access is I. Okay, this is exactly what I did here too. So this one, as me, you want to access a solid icon. Let's say I think we have a solid user, or a user post solid icon do we have here. Okay, let's say we have the sign out auth, or the user secret, or the pencil auth. Okay, let's see the pen auth. Okay, so I can still use S here and say pen hyphen auth. Okay, so this one will also give me a regular, sorry, a solid icon. Okay, so if I refresh this, I'll get a solid icon. Okay, so it's the same thing. You can use this. Okay. Okay, we can use this guy, this solid, or we can just say we need regular. And what I wanted to use initially was I. Okay, so with this, if I refresh this, you see that we now have regular I projects. Okay, so this is it. Okay, so the major thing I was explaining here now is here within the template, you determine if you are going to display the lecturer, if the user type is a lecturer, it will display this menu. But if the user is a student, to display this menu. Okay, so what we're going to do here now is any menu that we want to restrict to only the student will be created inside this template. Okay, while any menu we want to restrict to only the lecturer will be created inside this template. Okay, so that is that. So, and all these things now are inside the nav bar. As you can see, it is the side nav that are included into the app layouts. Okay, the side nav. But even within the side nav, I'm now creating another nav bar, which is another component inside the side nav from a different file on its own. I mean, this component can be worked upon by somebody else, while someone else.
Sabi.
Okay. Hello, you can hear me now, right? Everybody can hear me now, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Pardon, my network is still giving me some issues. I hope Victor and Ebube are still listening. So, let me try round up for today so that we can okay. Pardon my network, please. So I'll share my screen again. Okay, I believe we all can see the screen now. Okay, so now let me try just round up some things so that I will give us the first task that we're going to perform. Okay, I'll give us the first task. Now, Noble is going to manage the entire project because I might not really be very active while we are working on the project. Okay, so but I'll be directing us what to do at each point. Okay. Sorry. So now this is this is the side nav that was entered into the app layouts. Okay. So now on this app layout, let me talk about something else, which is the slots. Okay. Let me talk about something else, which is the slots. Now, everything I just talked about now is this side nav, and in this side nav that was included, this is side nav that was included. And I did some things on the side nav, and as well included another component called the navbar where all our menu were done rather. Okay, so that is for the side nav and the menu, that's the navbar. Okay, so I also talked about font awesome. If you want to use font awesome, you have to first of all register them as part of the font awesome library that was created as a component to the view, so that we were able to use it just the way we saw that I was using it on that other part. Okay. So now the next thing I want to talk about is the slot, which is another important part of this work. Okay, the slot. Now, if you watch here, I have a slot, and this slot have a name called header. Okay, now if you watch what we are having currently here, you see that we actually have the header, that's the top header, but there's no content in it. Okay, now for another thing from what we've seen so far, that this whole structure was put in place by the app layout. That means if there's no app layout, you will not see anything here. Now, what is the work of the slots? That is the major thing I want to discuss now. What is the work of the slots? Okay. Now, when you say slots, just as the name implies, you can use it to slot in an extra content into the app layout. Okay. Now, the app layout is just like a template that has the whole structure of the entire website. Okay. So even though with the fact that the app layouts have the whole structure of the website, now the content of each page you visit on the website should be different from each other. That is what makes it a page. Like if I'm on the about page, I'm on my home page, I'm on any page, it should be different. Okay. So the slot is simply what you can use to inject the content into the app layout from that particular page you're working on. That means if I'm on dashboard, I can inject the dashboard into these slots. If I'm on about, I can inject the about into the slots. If I'm on any other page like FAQ, I can inject the content of my FAQ into the slots. Okay, that is what the slot will do. All of them will be using that same app layout, but because of the slots, the content of each of these pages cannot be different. Okay, so that is what the slot is doing. Now we have two types of slots here. If you watch, I have these slots that have a name. Okay, now this slot that have a name, it simply implies that whenever you are using this slot, you should tell it you want to slot it something from this into this app layout. okay, into this particular place of the app layer, what you do is you have to close it with a template, okay? Now let me open one of the page, okay? The dashboard is open. Now, if you watch what's happening here now, on this app layer, okay, I have a template. Now this template, I gave it hash header, okay? Now this hash header you're seeing is as a result of this slot that is named header. That means as me I name this slot, let's say ASD, for instance, I'll have to come here and say hash ASD. That means I'm trying to say the content of this template should be slotted into a slot that is called ASD. Okay, do we get what I'm trying to say? I believe we understand. How many people are still online? We have 5 people. Victor. Okay. So
You should say those ones never sleep.
I don't know, but any which way, what I'll do is, since I'm recording it, I'm going to upload the records into the YouTube account and save them as a template. Sorry, not template. Pardon me. A playlist. Okay. I mean, I'll save them as a playlist. Then I'm going to do a normal video to illustrate some other things before in the morning, then add it to the playlist. And add it to the playlist with those things that I will do now. Then we can now start working. Then on this video as well, on this video that from the Zoom, I'm going to assign some tasks to them actually. Okay, so I don't know. But let me just continue around this up because time is fast spent already.
More the frog also they even gree me here.
My
I never understand my network today, so far.
choco.
You choke, ba?
To
Now they hear me.
yeah.
Okay. My network, they frustrate me seriously. So I'll just end the meeting actually, but let me just say because of the recording, let me just complete what I want to do. Okay. So I was just trying to explain the slotting thing. Okay. So now, like I was saying, these slots. Okay, this named slot now. If I want to slot anything into it, I'll simply use this name. Okay. So when you do a template with the hash, this simply means that whenever the template, when on the layout now, whenever it sees any name called, any slot called header as a name, you should slot this content into it, okay? But now, apart from the named slot, if you watch what's going on here, there's another slot here that was not named, okay? Now, this slot that is not named is the major slot that every other content that is not in a name slot will enter. Okay, that means the slots now will just hold any other content that is not in a named slot. That means every other thing, okay, will come inside these slots. Okay, so that is how we were able to get the entire app, as we can see the whole app like this now. Okay, so now the video I'm going to do, I'm going to make a video and I'm going to create on that video, I'm going to create a new page and maybe change one or two things within this content that we are seeing already. So I'll change one or two things and show how I changed it. Maybe create a new page, create a new component, work with that component, okay? Now when I work with the components, and I post video online, then with that video and what I've discussed here, I believe we should be able to start working on the projects, okay? So that is some of the things that's how far we can go for the Zoom meeting, okay? So I'll just do the other one now, post. Okay, but right now, after I've ended this video, I'll have to save the videos that we recorded from the Zoom so that we know that, okay, this will be like the first parts of the tutorial video that I'm going to do while I work with one or two things on the page. As I'm working, I'll be showing us what and what we can do. So I think it is after that that I will now designate some task to each and every one of us. Okay. So I think that is that for now, since most of us are not available again. So thank you for banking with us.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We do really appreciate this.
No wahala. So
Yeah.
now just from tomorrow, Noble, from tomorrow,
Sir.
we're going to, you know, this whole thing and projects, student projects, you know, normally we're not supposed to place priority on student projects, but because of what I told you, we'll have to just do this. So that I use this one to kind of fish out those people that can actually work, that have easy to work, that can stick around even while the going gets tough. Okay. You know there's a popular saying that when the going gets tough, it's only the tough that gets going.
Yeah. Only the people that smooth.
So that just
people like me. I guess that
so now the thing is, I will leave everything to you after tomorrow, after we've designated each part of the app. So I'll leave everything to you. You'll be the one coordinating it. What I'll just be doing is I'll be monitoring the progress. Then anything that I'll do within it, I'll also do. Publicists will be working collaboratively. Now I'm going to do some of the major modules. Some of the major modules. Okay, and work with the major modules. Then the other people now, what to assign to them for now, since they are just new builds, we'll just be assigning maybe some of the designs. That's maybe when you bring out a module, it's okay, design this thing, design it inside this component. This is how it's supposed to look like. You understand? So that's what we are going to give them for now, just designing, so that they will first of all familiarize themselves with the what's it called? the structure, because that's the major thing. You know, the normal thing is, the thing is not hard, but familiarizing with the structure, that is the major challenge. Now, if you are familiar with the structure, after they must have acquainted themselves with the whole entire structure of the application, then we can now start giving a complex task. Okay.
Yeah.
So that is how it's going to be. So I think with that, we can call it a day for today.
Okay.
So Mona, sleep well.
Okay. Okay. Good night.